like that. That's cool. Recording in progress. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, and it gives you the option to leave leave meeting.
Yeah. Leave the meeting if you're unhappy about it. So all right. So I'll start, and again, I'm gonna do just like on the show, and I can at least edit out this. I won't play this beginning little tab. So all right. So good morning. Thank you for listening to WXOX 97.1 FM in Louisville, Kentucky, or listening on artxfm.com. This is LVA's Artebella on the radio, the show produced by Louisville Visual Art, and my name is Keith Waits. Today we're talking to Dean Christensen, who is a Louisville native, but he's a figurative painter living and working in Brooklyn, New York. Christensen's body of work is an ongoing commentary on the influence of the smartphone in our lives. I think it's gone beyond that, but that's one of the things we'll talk to Dean about. Using satire, social media, iconography, and techniques that mimic in-app editing tools, he compels us to examine online persona, the human need for connection and approval, the inescapable pervasiveness of advertising, and the hidden constraints of social media. The titles of his first three solo shows to date, The Millennium Man, Me, Myselfie, and I, Who is Dean Christensen, and FCMDL, Felt Cute, Might Delete Later, really are a pretty good indication of a lot of the subject matter that has, or a lot of the theme that has, I think, dominated his work to date. But he is opening a show here in Louisville called Smile at Gallery Hertz, opens on July 18th with a reception from 1 to 4 p.m. and will run through September 5th. Nice long run. No, you can't have any excuses not to be able to go see this show. So good morning, Dean. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. So, so let's talk about the work. I always like to start with, so if people go, what are they going to see? Is this a particular sort of series, or is this a representative of a lot of different kinds of work? I mean, what is it that they will walk in? What is Smile?
So I like to think of it as kind of a whimsical respite, you know, kind of a visual break from all of the difficulties we've had with this year in quarantine. It's cheeky. Every painting is me painting myself into the work of a contemporary artist that I admire. So a lot of selfie paintings, which kind of goes back to the reference that I had in, the Millennial Man, Me, Myselfie, and I, that I actually had for my first show at the same place at Gallery Hertz. So now I've just kind of built on that theme. There's a lot of references to VR, and I ride a lot of animals, including Jeff Koons' balloon dog. I ride a Triceratops, the robot Triceratops made by Sorayama, Hajime Sorayama, if I pronounced that right. And just a bunch of artists that inspired me during a very hard year for myself. I just kind of wanted to stay positive and put myself in very optimistic situations.
So all of the work was created during the time of the pandemic?
Correct. Yeah, just barely made it. So I was starting my first painting in the series in Switzerland, right when the pandemic hit. And everything else I made here in Louisville. So it only makes sense to show all the work here in Louisville the same way.
So, because at the time, of course, when you were in Switzerland, you didn't go back to New York because that was the time when New York was very frightening. Numbers were crazy there, right?
So I was in Switzerland, and then the travel ban, I actually beat the travel ban by 1 day. And I had booked my flight, months previous. But the next day there was no international travel, which I think I've heard from some people I still would have been able to make it home. But so I flew back to New York, and when I landed, it was a different world. It was just barely touching Switzerland at the time. And in New York, people were wearing hazmat suits on the sidewalk, and there were, those meat trucks were like on the, on the streets outside of the hospitals and things like that. And it was a mess. So I was like, yeah, time to get
home. Well, so your work, I've come to realize over time, looking at different kinds of art, that I think identity is the most important theme, I think, for all artists. And if whenever you discuss anything else like family, relationships, all whatever, it all really still is about identity. And so, it's interesting to see you place yourself in the works of these other artists, because I mean, so what is it? Is that talking about? Obviously, you picked artists, as you said, that were an influence on you, that you were looking at their work to get some inspiration from, or something like that. Uh,
Mhm.
but what other like what are you saying about yourself by this action of putting yourself in these paintings? What do you think?
Mhm. Well, firstly, I definitely agree that all art is about identity. And I actually just had this conversation that, even when people are painting like a landscape, it's still the artist representing what they want to be seen, what they want to show about themselves, and how they're doing it, and in what the scene is, and everything like that. Um, so I just take it a step further. Like the paintings that strike me, I have that feeling of, you know, that's so great. I would love to be on that level, or whatever it is about it that strikes me. I kind of go through the thought process of, what can I do to emulate that? And I just kind of went for the simple, what was just made the most sense to me. I can paint myself in that. I can have a piece of that. And that's all art is anyway, really, when you break it down, is everyone's kind of taking references from other places, and it's just an accumulation of a bunch of people stealing. And so I'm just kind of being unapologetic about it and painting myself in these works. It just, here I am.
Have you ever had any communication with any of the artists that you're copying?
um I haven't, but I did have Jerry Saltz, an art critic, like one of my posts. So that made me feel pretty good. And yeah, I always kind of try to get the people on my Instagram to tag the artists that I'm referencing and try and get their attention somehow. Um, yeah, that would be great. That's definitely part of the goal. Is I want to kind of embed myself in the conversation of what all these top contemporary artists are doing and talking about.
Well, and so when you say you paint yourself into works by these artists, I mean, how much are you how 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 much are you copying them, and how much are you just sort of extrapolating from an image that they've done? How closely are you recreating those artists'
Right.
style?
So there's always two or three like vast changes, and then of course, just the way that I paint is not going to be the same as how something is in real life. But for instance, I referenced Yayoi Kusama, and I actually took a corner of a Thomas Kincaid Cinderella painting, and then I thought, I want to have the pumpkin of Kusama, so I made it the Cinderella pumpkin, and then replace the actual pumpkin in the Thomas Kincaid painting with Kusama's pumpkin, and then edited it to where I was inside, so I'm kind of Cinderella in the painting, and
So
then
yeah.
made some changes with the lighting and everything like that, and I'm playing an Xbox inside of the the pumpkin.
So you're being pretty loose, pretty freewheeling about bringing these associations together. So it sounds like a single painting might even have more than one reference to one artist, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
And it sounds like you're having just a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's I want to keep it light. Being in New York and being around, so much kind of highty tighty, art people for 4 years, being able to just kind of take a breath and just keep it light and keep it fun. I feel like, every year I kind of find myself more and more. And I feel like that is kind of what I bring to the table. Like what makes me happiest is when someone is like, that made me laugh, or that made me smile. And, that's kind of what fills me up.
Well, and I think a lot of audiences find that they're surprised. I'm still surprised, like for example, when I laugh at a dance performance, when modern dance moves into, it picks up on slapstick and comedy, things like that. And I think a lot of people might approach visual art the same way, is that they take it so seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny. It's their first connotation. Like my dad, he actually came to a show. We brought him to a Carlos Gomez de Francisco show. I think it
Mm.
was a few years ago. And, you know, it was a very casual thing. It wasn't the opening or anything. And he like came up to me quietly and was like, "Do you think I can take pictures?" It's like, "Yeah, Dad, it's fine. Relax." You know, it's
Well,
funny.
and it's funny too, considering like your so much of your work has been about the use of the uh,
Cell
smartphone
phone.
cameras. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the point is that it's not really. I mean, I guess it's nice. I still feel a little odd myself, but I do it, you know, when I'm in galleries because I want to share like with my friends that are in other cities or whatever. Like, oh, look at this cool art. But I still almost want to ask permission. But then I realize like they expect you to do this. This is the world now. If you're not pulling your camera out, there's something wrong with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I want people to pull their camera out. You know, that's free promo. You know, goes on everyone's social media and then kind of snowballs. You know, a lot of New York galleries, even the big ones, they kind of have the selfie bait, uh, you know, things in the front of the gallery, or maybe there's like a face cut out of something just to get the word around. And that stuff makes sense to me. I grew up in it, you know.
Well, it's been a part of that your early work, you know, and I've always thought about it too. It's like as I watched the, you know, I'm a lot older than you, but as I watched these cell phones come out and start to be so pervasive, you know, that the thing that seems to be the sort of issue sometimes, which I think you're getting at in your particularly your earlier work, is that a lot of times people feel like it doesn't matter unless they get pictures of it, right? You take a picture of yourself with something so you can prove that you're there instead of sort of just deciding to relish the experience of being there. Enjoy
Right.
the location, look at it, drink it in, and don't don't take a picture of it with your phone. But
Yeah.
sort of
There's definitely
validates our existence.
uh-huh. Yeah, you weren't there if you don't have a selfie there. You know,
Right.
it's like a funny thing. Yeah, it's odd. I think there is a balance. You know, when I go camping or anything like that, it's I need to not bring my phone because
Mhm.
I will get on Instagram and things like that, and I know that the short term appeal is there. Like it really is almost like a drug. And I honestly I think that within, you know, 10, 15 years, maybe sooner, there is going to be like more regulations around how often you can use your phone, because it is, if you think about it, not as a phone, but as like a different object, you just have all these people just looking at their hand all
Mhm.
the time and getting nothing. Like, like sometimes you get a little excited, but like it really does nothing for you. It's just the same as doing some type of drug. It's like you do need to have a balance. And actually, my Felt Cute Might Delete Later show was kind of talking more about that, which was the show I had in New York, where it was a bunch of paintings where I kind of removed myself from the painting.
Mhm.
And it was kind of talking about losing yourself in social media.
Well, yeah, people don't think about it that way, but yeah, it is like when we talk about like a drug, that seems just like a, you know, a dismissive phrase, you know, with no meaning, but it is true. It's like if you wanted to sort of uh, calibrate or measure in some way the negative effects of social media and electronic devices, you would start to regulate them. You would start to think like it's
Yeah.
probably healthier to do certain kinds of drugs or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I don't want
yeah,
to be like
exactly.
pro drug, but you know, it's like it's the cumulative effect is probably much more negative than a lot of things that we spend a lot more time regulating.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you dopamine, and you know, it definitely gives you a huge, you know, what comes up must come down. You know, once you're on Instagram for 4 hours straight, and then you are off it, you're kind of like, you know, you wonder why all these younger generations talk about so much anxiety and everything. It's, you know, and I'm not to say don't do it or do it, because I am kind of the selfie guy, you know, but
Yeah.
you know, especially the older I get, the more I realize kind of like I got to be careful with that. For me, I mean, I have to delete Instagram because if I have the app on my phone, I'll get on it. It's like beyond me at this point. I'm like, ooh, I wonder what's going on now. Should I post something that, you know, do people still care? And then I'm like, just who cares? Delete the app, get on it tomorrow. It's like, it's interesting how it's turned into that. And I'm sure, I talked to some of my friends, and it's similar for other people. So TikTok is probably worse.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into TikTok at all. So
Yeah.
and I barely do Instagram, but it is there. Yeah, I'm always being told that that's really the important one, and I should be paying more attention to it, which really just kind of makes me actually stay away from it more, I think. So your website is deanchristенsen.com. It's pretty
It's
and
ND.
and Dean Christensen, and that's Christensen with 2 E's, no O in there, which is probably what people tend to do with that name. But one of the things I noticed, because I remember seeing your work at that first show at Gallery Hertz in 16?
Yeah, it was 16. Yep.
2016. I find, some of these things that I'm looking on your website, there's a lot of interesting color. Like your use of color and your exploration of color has changed a little bit. I'm looking right now as we talk. I was looking at some. I think these are maybe the images from the Felt Cute Might Delete Later, because it looks like there's like scenes where your body starts to disappear. But how talk to me about color in your painting, because it seems like there's been a real movement and engagement with this color that seems kind of I want to say it's like liquid plastic sometimes. Like the colors are very bright, seem like plastic, but there's also a real liquid, I guess one word is plasticity, to the way the color exists there. Like, so how did you get to that? Like, what are your thoughts and awareness of how color has changed in your work?
Yeah. I've always just been a huge fan of color. In high school, I remember my art teacher, Mr. Whitehouse, he had a phrase, if you see color, put it in. And just since the beginning, I always remember if I saw any color, I would try and amplify it. I would try and make it as vibrant as possible, almost like a game. And I just am personally always drawn to things that are really bright and kind of give me that immediate satisfaction, like candy, things that appeal to me in that way. And I look a lot at advertising and things like that, and big, bold, primary colors seem to be the best thing to kind of resonate with people. Lately, I've been, I still always brighten up my color, but I actually like the idea of making, all the color more subdued, and then having one or two really punchy pieces of color, like kind of reserving myself a little bit. So I'm going to probably experiment with in some new work. But yeah, I guess I just have always really liked color. I don't really know how deep that goes, but just
Well, but
things.
and again, when I think of the earlier work, the color is very strong, but it also seems more, it seems sort of grounded and earthy in the paintings from the Me, Myself, and I. And then there's a sort of a broader lighter range, I guess. And but even though you push that saturation, it seems like there's just a difference. And I'm thinking about how there's like a grid of color in some of these paintings, for example. That's like a background that I think that color seems like a very different way to approach color for you.
Yeah, so
That's striking me.
Yeah, that I think I wanted to emulate the idea of pixels, like to play on the reference to social media and online culture. I made all of them just really crisp, clean squares to emulate that. And when you look really close at a computer screen, it's all actually, even when you look at white, if you actually get a drop of water or something and it amplifies all the pixels, it's red, yellow, CMYK sometimes. But yeah, very bright, vibrant colored pixels to create a different color.
Well, it also strikes me that sometimes some of those images they start to look more, and I want to be careful because I don't want to I'm not trying to describe your work as being overly commercial, but there's an illustrative quality to some of it.
Hmm.
Uh, sort of a much sort of cleaner, sharper sort of image in a way. And
Yeah,
then there's a sequence of paintings where you have sort of a product placement thing going on, where you're
yeah.
dropping.
Uh-huh.
So are you
So I'm
sending your commentary there to our relationship to?
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of responding to the things that I see, especially, a lot of the things in New York. But I've always been kind of drawn to the artists that go slightly commercial. And I
Mhm.
never want to exist fully there because, oil painting is my first love, and there's nothing commercial about the tradition of oil painting necessarily. So I want to kind of live in that world of fine art, fine gallery art, and then also artists like Kaz or like Takashi Murakami who have those toys and things like that they sell. I would really love to dabble and kind of dive deep into that area. And I've always tried to do the Dean Saatchi kind of clothing line with the paintings, like as a simultaneous thing, and it's just always appealed to me.
Well, and I think there's, like I say, I did not mean for that to sound, and I hope it didn't like any sort of
Mm,
criticism. I think there's some brilliant work done by illustrators, and of
mm.
course, it's not easy making a living as an artist. So if you can find ways to have income, then great. But it also strikes me that it seems in some ways very appropriate for you, given your thematic obsessions, right? About
Yeah.
our relationship to social media, but then our relationship to consumer society, which is now it's coming at us through social media. You get on, I find I can just think about something and I get on
Right.
Facebook and all my ads are populated by products related to that thought. And I wonder how they knew. Like I said the word out loud and my computer picked it up. So that's a whole nother question about surveillance society that we could talk about for hours. But you
Right.
you seem
No,
perfect.
it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. You seem
So
perfectly
yeah,
suited to
the
do.
uh, the the New York show had a lot of that where it was like a painting of a woman and then just with a huge LaCroix can right in front of it, things like that. Because it was emulating that, this is this electronic space, and then boom, you didn't ask for this, but here's this ad that's kind of floating through the middle of the painting. Yeah, I definitely like the idea of commenting on that.
Well, and you're wearing in this interview, now is this Dean Saatchi? But we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about the shirt before we got started, uh, which I really like, the broccoli shirt. The hat,
Thank you.
is the hat Dean Saatchi as well?
This is not. This was my grandma's hat.
Oh, okay. Well,
That
that's
was like she's no longer with us. She is still with us. So she just left it at my house.
that hat looks very modern for being your grandma. That's an interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
cool.
got swag, my grandma.
It goes well with the Dean Saatchi shirt, I think.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
but it's just do, but do you feel that way, like that that because to me it's like it's not necessarily, I think once upon a time we would have said about a fine artist, and fine quotation marks artist, I
Mm.
think a weird phrase, but when we say it, I think it's clear what I'm sort of referring to.
Mm.
If you start to market your work or turn it into uh, 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 you know uh, trademark patterns and things like that, that is selling out. But so, but like, do you ever think about that, or do you feel like it's just a natural step for many artists in this world today, like yourself?
Oh, I'm excited to sell out. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I don't think of that as a problem. I do think of it as a natural step. And if I were to get some deal with Sprite or something to paint them something, I would put that everywhere. I'd be so excited. And I know how hard it is to make a living as an artist. So I always encourage artists to kind of feel the same way. And don't feel guilty about making money. It's so hard to do what we do. And in fact, encourage other artists to do the same and, bring them up. None of us were kind of given any type of business mind in any of our training. And so it's good to kind of be there for each other in that way.
Well, and if
So
you,
I'd love to, sorry.
well, no, I mean, and well, no, I'm not, and I, like I say, I don't know that it's necessarily selling out. And again, I think I look at the work and the kind of things you're painting. Again, it seems like a more natural progression for you. Like you're not sort of undermining, the integrity of everything or changing everything you've done. It just seems like it would be the natural progression.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've stayed fairly on course, and I didn't expect that. Like I've tried other things. My first show, I had that deep fear of, was this premature? Like I really, honed into this selfie concept and became quote unquote the millennial man as my debut to the world. And, maybe that was premature. And so I tried to do other things, and it just didn't give me the same excitement as kind of being, at least attempting to be the face of the selfie guy. And, when I do the selfie related stuff, like I like the idea of, if it's, it's not a Dean Saatchi painting unless I'm in the painting. That's kind of my way of signing it, is to just put myself in it. And it gives me the freedom to, first off, paint wherever I want, because I'm my own reference and I'm a figurative painter. So I have the freedom to just set up a tripod and take some silly reference photos and then just get to work. And, also I can really paint anything I want as long as I put myself in it. And there's so much freedom and excitement in that to me. I could, anything that strikes me, I can do my own version of it and then paint myself in it. And it still kind of resonates in that same way that my first work resonated with people.
Well, I do see on your website there's some pieces that I don't see you in. I think it's a small percentage. So in all these different kinds of images I see, do you work on these different series concurrently? And I know you were just in Louisville doing the paintings that we're going to see at Gallery Hertz, but do you get into one kind of place and paint through that sort of subject or theme or series, or do you alternate and work on different pieces in the same period of time?
I have pretty bad ADD. What I've learned about myself is, if I don't fully resolve an idea, then I'll get, for instance, if I start a series of work and then I paint a tree, I might get so excited about the tree that I completely ditch the old series of work unless I flush it all out kind of while I'm excited about it. So I do, at least lately, I do focus on a concept and I try and get everything out of it that I can before I move on to another concept. And I've kind of found my stride, and I try and get 10 paintings that revolve around a theme that is exciting to me, and then I'll let that live as a body of work. I kind of think of it as like a paragraph in a larger book, and then I move on to another series. But yeah, I do kind of work in series. I don't really bounce back and forth. I would like to, like my intuition wants me to a lot of the time. And I think that's another reason why this series of painting myself with the masters is exciting, because there's so many different places I can take it. It's kind of like cathartic to my attention deficit. Yeah, if I were to start really wanting to paint houses, I would keep that in the back of my painting pictures of houses, not like ditching my art job and painting walls. But I would keep that in the back of my mind, and then I would flush out whatever I was working on at the time, and then I'd get to that afterward.
Do you, you have such great facility as a painter. So it's no mystery. Look at the work and think why you're a painter. But do you ever feel drawn to doing to experimenting with other sorts of mediums or getting into three-dimensional work? I mean, you've done some video things, and so what other things besides painting draw you?
So I actually have been really excited about the idea of wood carving lately, which is random, I know, but I was in sculpture in high school and I was in sculpture in college. and I had a really good time. I sculpted this big Popeye mask out of wood, and it was so fun and hands-on and gritty, but you're really just with the work in a different way. So I'm interested in all that stuff, and I'm excited to branch out. Sculpturally, wood carving. Also, I have like the music outlet, which has been like a funny kind of side thing. I haven't really debuted any of like the pop music except for that one song at my show in 2016. But yeah, I'm definitely excited in other things. Painting will always be my first love, and I find that I always fall back into that when I'm in any type of rut. But I would like to kind of branch into some other things.
Well, so you continue to make music, but you haven't shared it in a public way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, I have like a full EP of unreleased songs that are very silly.
Well, I think silly can be very profound and meaningful. Like we were talking about, the ability for art to provoke us to laughter is important. So,
yeah, I agree. I was having this conversation with my friend, and I always kind of like to live in silly, but they walk away thinking about something deeper. They don't walk away just as if they just heard a one-liner. I want there to be references to our culture, references to today, and kind of have people think a little deeper. But also, I feel like the silliness is what brings people in. So I like to live in that.
well, I think there's a real relationship to deep and dark and silliness.
Big time.
Yeah, that people don't always want to explore. I grew up always hearing silly as sort of a dismissive. That's silly. That's
a silly thing. Yeah, sure.
yes, but Groucho Marx is silly, but yet we're looking and talking about his work all these years later. I mean, the great comedy lives on. So yeah. So you've been in Louisville all this time. What's your plans about going back to New York? Have you given up on New York, or you just been enjoying the time here?
I have been enjoying the time here. Most of my adult life, pretty much after college, I just went straight to New York. So I never lived on my own as an adult anywhere else. And my bar was set to paying $1,000 a month in rent. And I just have to keep grinding and treading water. And that's what being an adult is in my head. And then, coming back here for quarantine and having a whole house and a pool and a studio for like a third, not a third, but yeah, it feels good to kind of be comfortable. But I am, now that things are opening up, I am starting to get FOMO a little bit with New York. So I was just there on a 10-day trip. I like that I can afford to kind of bounce city to city with having a home base here in Louisville. But I do think that I'm going to end up moving back. I think I like to be the small fish, kind of. I like to be around people that I really admire and look up to. And I think that, while I'm still young, that would be the best thing for me in my career, to kind of just keep molding myself until I really want to settle down.
Well, there's historically New York has been sort of the center of so many things. That's where you go to make it. In most arts outside of Hollywood and television and filmmaking. And it still seems like I'm wondering, because I know I've heard like people that are curators and different kinds of sort of arts administrators say that the only people that believe New York is still the center of everything are New Yorkers. But
Yeah.
still, and that's because a lot of things are happening around the country. A lot of cities are building up their cultural communities in important ways. But it sounds like New York still has maybe a unique sort of dynamic and energy that you're digging.
Yeah, especially now post quarantine, it's kind of like a renaissance over there. When we visited, everyone is so excited to go and get out, and of course, with that comes so much creativity. So there is that just feeling of being in the pulse that is really kind of good for being creative. And, you know, opportunities are just more like you could go out and talk to the right person, and, you know, that person introduces you to someone else, and then suddenly you have a big mural that you have to do. You know, it's those things happen kind of more organically in New York. But I have learned that being here, you know, I can still get things done, you know, sending emails and things like that. I actually have a show with a lot of the same work that I'm showing with Billy. In October, I'm showing at Soho House in Brooklyn, and Empire Stores, which is the bottom floor of Soho House, where they have just a bunch of fancy restaurants and things like that. And I put all that together from here through email. So it was like, okay, I can still kind of be here. This could be home base, and I can go there and, you know, do what I need to do, and then come home, live comfortable and quiet. Because it's a funny thing with New York. It's almost a toxic relationship. Like when you're there, you feel so excited, and for the first day, you know, and then the second, third day, you're like, okay, all this excitement is just people trying to pay rent. Like they are anxious. They are running around just trying to do what they could do to get by. And then when you leave, you're like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to be that, you know, be away from that. And then you're like, oh, I want to get back. It's like, you know, I think for if you're young, you know, and you want to kind of refine yourself, then it's a good place to go for a while, and then you know, maybe settle down somewhere else. I think I still want to move back for a little longer.
Well, it sounds like the most important thing is that you've established relationships up there, and you have
Yeah.
an identity as an artist with that community and those galleries and things like that. So,
Mhm.
and that's probably very meaningful, and that might be harder to do from a distance. So,
Yeah, it's true. And thinking about the Soho House thing, I actually met them before when I was there, because my friend's mom has an event planning agency and introduced me to someone there. And then so I guess I did kind of need to be there now that I'm now that I'm thinking deeper about that. Yeah, being in person, you know, it really is. It makes all the difference. Here we are on Zoom.
well, Dean Christensen, I think that'll about do it today, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah,
Dean
for
Christensen,
let me do. Great.
yeah, Dean Christensen's show, Smile, will be opening at Gallery Hertz on the 18th with a reception from 1 to 4 down on South Preston Street, and runs through September 5th. Was that the date? September 5th? Yeah. So it's the summer art event of Louisville.
Oh, I like that title. Okay. The summer art event of Louisville. I love it.
Well, you know, whatever. Everybody can call their own thing that, but
No, but
that's
this is the real one.
that's a
I
nice
get
long
it.
run. That's a nice long run for a show. But I know sometimes galleries will do that because, and particularly now, everybody's probably out traveling and, you know, making up for not being able to vacation for a year. So it's good to have a show up for a long time, I think, you know, over the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not showing there, it's probably going to be in my studio collecting dust, you know, so get some eyeballs on it.
Yeah. Well, that's not where artwork should be. It should be out in
Yeah.
the world. And I'll say it again, I preach it so often for any regular listeners. I hope there are regular listeners. You can't just look at art online. You've got to go and see it and be in the room with it.
Yes.
It's much different.
Yeah.
It's great to have websites and social media to get the people's attention, but hopefully then what they do is come and look at it in the space. So
Totally agree.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dean Christian. Good luck with the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Keith.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.